They leave like they never cared. That's the part that rips you open, not just the leaving, but the way they vanish into silence. Like what you had was a flicker, not a flame. No explanation, no clarity, just cold air where once there was connection. And in that silence, you start to question everything. Was any of it real? Did I imagine the closeness? Was I the only one who felt it? But then something strange happens. They come back. Not with a grand apology, not with flowers and closure and promises. No, it's subtle. A text, a comment on your story, a hey, just thinking about you. And suddenly, the same person who left without warning is now back in your world like the door was never fully shut. It messes with your sense of reality. Because deep down, a part of you always knew they'd come back. You felt the pull between you. You saw the way they looked at you, not with emptiness, but with fear. Fear of being known, fear of being held accountable, fear of being seen and not knowing what to do with that much intimacy. So here sits what most people don't realize about avoidance. Leaving is part of the pattern. It's not always about rejection. It's about overwhelm. It's about needing to retreat to regain a sense of control. But coming back, that's where it gets complicated. Because when they return, they aren't just resuming the relationship. They're testing the waters, checking if they can still be close without losing themselves. There are stages to it. Patterns. And if you don't see them clearly, you'll mistake breadcrumbs for transformation. You'll confuse proximity with commitment. But when you know the stages, when you know what their return really means, you get to stop reacting and start responding. Strategically, powerfully, on your terms. Because here sits the truth. Avoidants do come back, but only the ones who are met with a different kind of energy stay for good. The first stage of an avoidant coming back is what I call the quiet reentry. It's subtle, unassuming, often disguised as casual or coincidental. It might be a meme they send, a song they say reminded them of you, a random check-in at midnight. Not because they've suddenly changed, but because their emotional nervous system has finally calmed down enough to miss you. See, avoidants aren't detached because they don't care. They detach because closeness overwhelms their inner wiring. When things get emotionally intense, even if it accepts love, it triggers something inside them that says, I accept I'm losing myself. I need space to breathe. So they leave. Sometimes coldly, sometimes cruelly. But when that pressure lifts, when the fear dies down and the silence starts to echo louder than their avoidance, they peek back in quietly, carefully. And here is where many people misread the moment. They think he steps back. He must have realized I steps him the one. But this first re-entry isn't a declaration of love. It's just a toe in the water, a safety check. They're not offering their heart. They're scanning to see if you'll still open yours. If you rush in with warmth, with openness, with answers they didn't ask for, you'll feel that old pattern repeat. They still withdraw again. Because what they sit for watching for is just your availability. It's whether you've changed, whether the dynamic still tilts in their favor. So what do you do in this stage? You don't stop punish, but you don't stop perform either. You meet them with presence, not pursuit. You become the mirror, calm, clear, unattached. Not cold, not cruel, but discerning. Because the moment you make them the center of your emotional world again is the moment they confirm nothing has changed. And avoidants don't return to what feels the same. They return to what feels safer than before. Not easier, safer. Not softer, sturdier. And when they sense that sturdiness in you, when you're not bending, not shrinking, not seeking, something shifts in them. Curiosity. Not about you, but about who you've become in their absence. And that curiosity is what takes them into stage 2. Stage 2 is the testing phase, but it's not the kind of test most people think it is. It's not about games or manipulation. It's about survival. At this stage, the avoidance starts showing up more consistently, but it doesn't feel like a full return. You get texts, small talk, maybe even an in-person meetup. They might flirt, they might reminisce, they might even say they miss you. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. They're scanning for one thing. Will loving you cost me myself again? It's not conscious. Avoidants rarely walk around thinking in those terms. But emotionally, they're wired to protect their independence at all costs. So when they start moving toward connection again, the body remembers the threat, the overwhelm, the engulfment. And now, before they let themselves fall again, they have to make sure you won't pull them under. So they test. Not your loyalty, your energy. They'll share something vulnerable and watch how you respond. Do you rush to fix it? Do you overextend to reassure them? Do you slide back into overgiving, hoping they'll stay? Because the truth is, they don't want a rescuer. They want a regulator. They want to feel close without feeling controlled. Loved without being smothered. Important, but not responsible for your emotional state. And here sits the trap. If you take this phase as a sign that we stir back to normal, you still start pouring again. You'll anticipate their needs over function, hold the emotional weight of two people, because that's what you used to do. But this time, it sets different. Because the second you step back into that role, they feel the old pressure return. And their body, not their brain, says, run. This is the phase where your nervous system becomes the deciding factor. Can you hold the tension of not knowing? Can you respond instead of react? Can you stay rooted in your own center, even when they're uncertain? If you can, something powerful happens. They feel your energy shift. You stir no longer chasing, you stir choosing. Not waiting, not hoping, watching. And that presence, grounded, unbothered, whole, it becomes magnetic. Because it signals that the old dynamic is no longer available. And if they want access to your heart again, they'll have to come with more than breadcrumbs. They still have to meet you. In reality, not in fantasy, not in fear. And when they see that, when they feel the cost of your energy rising, they either retreat for good or they step into stage 3. If this is landing for you, subscribe. We are just getting started. Stage 3 is the reckoning. This is the moment the avoidant realizes, I can't have the old version of you, and I don't want to lose the new one. It hits them differently. Not like lightning, like weight. Because for the first time, they see you clearly. Not the fantasy, not the role, not the container for their fears or projections. You. Your groundedness. Your softness without sacrifice. Your boundary without blame. And that sepses when something starts to crack. But here sits the paradox. It doesn't feel good for them. It feels terrifying. Because now they understand what real connection actually costs. Not just to you, but to them. It costs their hiding. It costs their illusions of control. It costs the story that love has to feel like suffocation. They may get quiet, withdraw again, pull back just when it felt like they were leaning in. This is not regression. This is conflict. Internal. Soul deep. It's the battle between what they've always done and who they would have to become to truly love you. And this is the most dangerous moment. Not for them, for you. Because this is where your nervous system will want to close. To shut the door. To match their avoidance with your own form of armor. You tell yourself, they had their chance. You'll want to cut them off, not out of strength, but out of protection. And no one would blame you. You've done the work. You've waited. You've shifted. Why keep your heart open to someone who keeps hesitating? But this is where your clarity becomes your compass. Not your hope, not your fear, your clarity. Not, do they love me? But do they have the courage to meet me where I am now? Because if they do, they will come again, but differently, without the mask, without the push-pull, without needing you to dim your light so they can feel safe in the dark. And if they don't set, you once did crumble, because this version of you, the one who can feel the difference between breadcrumbs and reciprocity, she once set settle for almost. She wants to orbit around potential. She won't collapse just because someone else can't rise. She shall grieve. She shall bless. She shall release. And then she shall turn towards something true. But there sets one more piece. Because even if the avoidant reaches this reckoning, it doesn't mean they shall stay. Not unless something deeper shifts inside them. And that sepsis where we go next. Avoidants don't stay because you convince them. They stay because something inside them finally feels safe enough to stop running. And this is where most people misunderstand the journey entirely. You think love will be enough, that your patience, your loyalty, your presence, all of it will eventually prove to them that they're safe. But safety for them isn't something they receive. It's something they build within themselves. Until that internal structure is strong enough, love feels like a threat. Not because you started doing anything wrong, but because the very experience of intimacy, of closeness, of being truly seen, activates their deepest terror. So when they begin to stay, really stay, it's not because you finally cracked the code. It's because they finally faced what they've spent their whole lives avoiding. Themselves. This is not a romantic moment. It's not a grand confession. It stays quiet, messy, often invisible to the outside world. They stop chasing the high of independence because they've tasted the ache of isolation. They stop ghosting and disappearing because it no longer gives them relief, only regret. They stop projecting their old wounds onto you because they've started taking responsibility for their own healing. And the shift is subtle. They don't show up with fireworks. They show up with consistency. They call even when they sit anxious. They stay in the conversation even when they want to bolt. They show you, not tell you, that they're learning how to hold you, not just their fear. But here sets the most important part. You don't wait for this. You don't shrink while they grow. You don't sacrifice your joy for the slow pace of their progress. You stand in your life fully, vibrantly, unapologetically. Because your wholeness isn't set a reward they have to earn. It sets the standard they have to rise to meet. And the moment you embody that, you become the mirror that either invites their transformation or reflects their refusal to change. So if they come back, it's not because you chased. It's because you anchored. And if they stay, it's not because you bent yourself into something palatable. It's because they saw your strength and finally decided to stand beside it. But not all avoidants make it to this place. Some stay stuck in the cycle. Some keep circling the drain of their own fear. And if you have ever wondered what separates the ones who return just to leave again from the ones who rise and really love you, that's what we still explore next. Send this to someone who's been stuck in this dynamic for far too long. The avoidant who comes back and leaves again isn't confused. They split. Split between craving connection and fearing it. Split between who they were taught to be and who they ache to become. Split between their armor and their longing. And that split is exhausting. Not just for you, but for them too. When they reappear, it often feels like a breakthrough. The message, the visit, the late night confession. For a moment, their walls drop and you see them. Not the mask, not the distance, not the defensiveness. Them, raw, open, present. But then, just as quickly, they vanish again. They pull back, disappear, retreat into that silence you've come to dread. And you stir left wondering, was it real? Yes, it was real. But here sits the truth. Just because a moment is real doesn't mean it's sustainable. That flicker of vulnerability they showed you, that wasn't a promise. It was a peek into who they could be, not proof that they're ready to be it. And this is the point where many people get hooked. They start chasing that glimpse. They start interpreting every breadcrumb as a sign. They live for the 3 a.m. text, the nostalgic memory, the unexpected reach out. But breadcrumbs aren't set nourishment. They set their distractions. When an avoidant isn't set grounded in self-awareness, when they haven't done the work to integrate their split, they will always retreat after reappearing. Not because they don't care, but because closeness brings up a pain they haven't learned to hold. And until they can hold their own pain, they can hold you. So what do you do when you're caught in this push-pull? You stop reading between the lines. You start reading the pattern. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You start looking for consistency. You stop making excuses for why they disappear. You start asking what it costs you to keep letting them come back. Because the avoidant who stays for good, the one who truly comes home, doesn't just show up differently. They are different. They face themselves. They've outgrown the pattern. They don't just want you. They can handle you. And the ones who can you bless them. You release them. You walk forward without guilt. Because your healing is not a waiting room. The next shift is the hardest one to accept, but the most freeing once you do. And it sets this. Sometimes the avoidant finally stays, right when you stopped needing them to. Shall I move into the final core shift? There's something strange that happens when you finally let go, not in bitterness, not in shutdown, not in some angry vow to never love again, but in clarity, in true bone-deep clarity. That moment when you stop chasing potential, stop waiting for signs, stop hoping they still come back as someone new. Something shifts inside you, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring differently. You stopped loving them through the lens of your longing and started seeing them through the lens of reality. You begin to realize it's not just about whether they come back. It's about who you are when they do. Because here steps the paradox. No one tells you the moment the avoidant finally stays is often the moment you don't then need them to. Not because you become cold, but because you become whole. You've learned to hold your own needs without apology. You've stopped managing their emotions like it's your job. You stopped auditioning for love and started embodying it. That version of you, grounded, clear, radiant, is not a mirror for their wounds anymore. You don't activate their fear of engulfment. You don't fuel their need to run. You become the presence that either awakens them or releases them. And either outcome is freedom. So if they come back and you've done your work, you don't anxiously grip. You observe. You receive not their words, but their consistency. You notice not what they say in the moment, but what they choose over time. And if they stay, it's not because you proved your worth. It's because you finally stopped trying to. And if they don't that's not your loss. It sets your liberation. Because sometimes the real win is not that the avoidant came back. It sets that you did. Back to your body. Back to your truth. Back to the version of you that no longer trades peace for possibility. And that steps when the right kind of love meets you, not as a reward for your pain, but as a match for your power. If you felt something shift inside you during this, subscribe. Not because you need more answers, but because you're finally asking the right questions.